A talented linguist with a big heart and an unassuming nature, this former Marine and serving soldier would go on to be awarded the USA's highest gallantry award, the Medal of Honor. In what I can only describe as a Rambo-esque rampage, this character wiped out 10 enemy bunkers, a machine gun nest, saved numerous lives, and took out 2 key enemy commanders, all within the space of a few hours. This is the incredible story of James L. Bondsteel. Born on the 18th of July 1947 in Jackson, Michigan, Bondsteel was the oldest of 7 siblings. His biological father reportedly died in the US Army, serving post-World War II occupational duties. Raised in a challenging and difficult environment as a youngster, Bondsteel would later use this experience to try and help others who were less fortunate that he saw around him, such as orphans. In 1965, immediately after graduating from Jonesville High School near Jackson, Bondsteel enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. He was sent to Korea, where he contributed time to helping at an orphanage. After serving around 6 months to a year in the Marines, possibly due to a complication with his birth certificate or some other administrative issue, Bondsteel was discharged. Back in the civilian world, it seems Bondsteel ironed out the issue and then very quickly joined the United States Army, enlisting in Detroit. From 1966 to 1970, he was then assigned to Company A, 2nd Battalion, 2nd Infantry Regiment, 1st Infantry Division. The 2nd Infantry Regiment are one of the oldest and most prestigious units in the United States Army, with more than 200 years of consistent service from the early 1800s. With a long list of battle honours, the regiment was part of Patton's Third Army during the invasion of Normandy in Operation Cobra, and later participated in the Battle of the Bulge and the invasion of Germany. During the Vietnam War, the regiment was assigned to the 1st Infantry Division. Known as the Fighting First, this division could trace its history as far back as the Revolutionary Wars. An artillery battery from the 5th Field Artillery reportedly fought against British redcoats. You naughty chaps. This division would serve constantly in Vietnam from 1965 until 1970. The division was also recognised as the Big Red One. In Vietnam, Bondsteel and the Big Red One would be based in south-central Vietnam, in an area of operations from the Cambodian border to the South China Sea. The troops would be fighting in varied geography, ranging from humid jungle to dusty roads, rubber plantations, and even swamps south of Saigon. Running through the area of operations, Highway 13 was a key arterial route leading into Saigon that needed to be protected. Areas such as War Zone C, the Iron Triangle, Michelin Trapezoid, and War Zone D would become infamous for hard fighting, with the troops from the Big Red One, including Bondsteel, becoming intimately familiar with those names. Serving in Vietnam, Bondsteel was known to his colleagues as Buddha, a nickname given to him by local Vietnamese, part in reference to his large frame and torso. Incredibly, Bondsteel would serve 3 tours in Vietnam, ranging from 1967 until 1970. After a brief period in West Germany, Bondsteel first arrived in Vietnam in October 1967, working with the headquarters company of the 1st Brigade. During that time, Bondsteel took a genuine and active interest in the local Vietnamese culture, even learning to speak Vietnamese and being able to differentiate between the local dialects. Reportedly, Bondsteel lived in a village during one tour with the Special Forces or Special Operations Unit, watching for signs of hostile activity against US and South Vietnamese forces. Perhaps monitoring atmospherics or conducting some sort of civil action program that the division employed to assist local villages and win support. It's possible, with his linguistic capability and genuine interest in Vietnamese life, Bondsteel was selected for this role. During his tours, Bondsteel clearly showed aptitude and leadership skills and was promoted to Staff Sergeant by 1969. In an example of his kind-hearted nature and desire to help others, Bondsteel was instrumental in having 4 young Vietnamese orphans sent to the United States. During 1969, Bondsteel and the Fighting First would be heavily involved in Operation Toan Thang III, meaning complete victory. This was a major military campaign conducted by the US Army and the Army of the Republic of Vietnam from the 17th of February to the 31st of October 1969. The operation was conducted in 3 corps AOR and was intended to keep pressure on the Viet Cong and People's Army of Vietnam. The operation involved multiple US and ARVN units, including the 1st Infantry Division, 9th Infantry Division, 25th Infantry Division, 1st Cavalry Division, and 3rd Brigade of the 82nd Airborne. The main objective of the operation was to smash the enemy's war potential on a vast scale. This included interdicting enemy infiltration routes, destroying enemy supply caches, as well as munitions, food stores, and other logistical support to weaken the enemy's operational effectiveness. It's during this operation that Bondsteel received the Medal of Honor for heroic actions, which occurred on the 24th of May in An Loc Province. The day before the action, on the 23rd of May, Alpha Company had been in contact with the enemy and also seized a cache of weapons from a small NVA base camp near the area. That night, Bondsteel's platoon and others in the company were given ambush duty. The next day, on the 24th, they were back at a small army outpost called Thunder 4 near An Loc, which was used to refuel their APCs. As the company began to regroup from the night mission and load up their APCs, on the net came a call that the recon platoon out on patrol about 5 miles away was taking fire. These troops had inadvertently stumbled into a battalion-sized enemy base camp. This camp contained up to 600 to 800 NVA soldiers. That's right, NVA, North Vietnamese Army, regular soldiers, not Viet Cong guerrillas. These NVA troops were professional soldiers, highly motivated and extremely capable. On news of the contact, Alpha Company rushed to the locality to reinforce their outnumbered buddies. I shall now read Bondsteel's citation. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty, Staff Sergeant Bondsteel distinguished himself while serving as a platoon sergeant with Company A near the village of Lang Sao. Company A was directed to assist a friendly unit which was endangered by intense fire from a North Vietnamese battalion located in a heavily fortified base camp. Staff Sergeant Bondsteel quickly organised the men of his platoon into effective combat teams and spearheaded the attack by destroying 4 enemy-occupied bunkers. He then raced some 200 metres under heavy enemy fire to reach an adjoining platoon which had begun to falter. After rallying this unit and assisting their wounded, SSG James Bondsteel returned to his own sector with critically needed munitions. Without pausing, he moved to the forefront and destroyed 4 enemy-occupied bunkers and a machine gun which had threatened his advancing platoon. Although painfully wounded by an enemy grenade, Staff Sergeant Bondsteel refused medical attention and continued his assault by neutralising 2 more enemy bunkers nearby. While searching for one of these emplacements, Staff Sergeant Bondsteel narrowly escaped death when an enemy soldier detonated a grenade at close range. From what I gather and the information I could find, this was apparently a fanatical NVA soldier in a bunker who had waited for Bondsteel to enter before deliberately pulling the pin out of the grenade, determined to take a US soldier with him. One of his platoon buddies, Donovan Colness, stated in an interview with Hillsdale Local News years later, Bondsteel entered head first and encountered a North Vietnamese soldier holding a grenade with the pin pulled. I can still see his feet and legs kicking up in the air as Bondsteel was trying to get out of that small opening. He barely got out when the grenade's concussion blew him back. Colness said Bondsteel got shrapnel in his face and chest, mostly just small fragmentations. He was very lucky that day.
Shortly thereafter, he ran to the aid of a severely wounded officer and struck down an enemy soldier who was threatening the officer's life.
Bondsteel ran from attacking bunkers to his company commander's position and struck down an enemy soldier who was attempting to kill Captain Coombs with a bayonet, and who he was engaged in hand-to-hand combat with.
Staff Sergeant Bondsteel then continued to rally his men and led them through the entrenched enemy until his company was relieved. His exemplary leadership and great personal courage throughout the 4-hour battle ensured the success of his own and nearby units, and resulted in the saving of numerous lives of his fellow soldiers. By individual acts of bravery, he destroyed 10 enemy bunkers and accounted for a large toll of the enemy, including 2 key enemy commanders. His extraordinary heroism at the risk of his life was in the highest traditions of the military service and reflect great credit on him, his unit and the US Army. Amazingly, Bondsteel seems to have taken out all of those heavily fortified bunkers with just grenades and his M16. Looking at the MACV monthly summary for 24th of May 1969, it states, "A unit of the 1st Brigade, 1st Infantry Division, engaged an enemy unit 5 miles west-southwest of An Loch. Mechanised infantry joined the contact, which continued until 1640. A search of the area found 96 People's Army of Vietnam dead and captured 1. US losses were 2 killed and 46 wounded." Another source states, "A search after the battle by Charlie Company found a body count of over 100, including the NVA battalion commander. The unit appeared to be the 141st NVA Regiment of the 7th NVA Division. Engaged in constant action over the 23rd, 24th and 25th of May, the entire regiment suffered heavy casualties in this hard, long fight." When the fighting finally stopped that day, US casualties for Alpha Company were 10 killed and 40 wounded, out of a total of approximately 115 or so men. It could have been even higher were it not for the heroic actions of Bondsteel. I just want to add, understandably due to the confusing nature of the action, there are slightly different narratives and sources, which slightly differ over minor details such as the timing of the battle or casualties. That said, they all agree on Bondsteel's incredible feats of heroism. During his service in Vietnam, in addition to the Medal of Honor, Bondsteel was also awarded a Bronze Star with Cluster, at least once with a V for Valor device. During his career, he was also awarded a Soldier's Medal. In 1973, Bondsteel received his medal in the last Medal of Honor ceremony presented by President Nixon.
From 1970 until 1973, Bondsteel was stationed in Germany. Then, for the rest of his career, he went to a wide variety of postings. From what I gather, in the late 70s, he was back stateside at Fort Benning, and he was managing one of the army gyms there. Just imagine popping in for a Pilates class and seeing this legend handing you a towel. I'm sure a dumbbell or two must have been dropped by some wide-eyed recruits as he walked past.
After his retirement from the army as a master sergeant, continuing his lifelong passion to help others, he became a veterans counsellor. Bondsteel settled in Willow, Alaska with his family, first working at the Wasilla Veterans Center and later as a counsellor at the regional office of the US Veterans Administration in Anchorage. Tragically, Bondsteel died on the Nick River Bridge of the Glen Highway in 1987 when a trailer full of logs came unhooked from the transport which was pulling it and slammed into the front of Bondsteel's vehicle whilst he was travelling home from work. The bridge where he died is named in his honour. There is a monument to him at the Alaska Veterans Memorial at Byers Lake on the Parks Highway in Denali State Park. Camp Bondsteel, the main US Army base in Kosovo, was also named in his honour. A road, Bondsteel Drive, is also named after him, and Bondsteel's name is also named on a monument of Medal of Honor recipients in Jackson, Michigan. What a fantastic way of honouring his memory. In summary, for Bondsteel's medals, we have Medal of Honor, Soldier's Medal, Bronze Star awarded twice with a V for Valor device at least once, Purple Heart awarded twice, Meritorious Service Medal, Army Commendation Medal, Army Good Conduct Medal, National Defence Service Medal, Vietnam Service Medal, Vietnam Gallantry Cross, and Vietnam Campaign Medal. In addition, his ribbons include a Presidential Unit Citation, Valorous Unit Award, Army Meritorious Unit Commendation, Republic of Vietnam Gallantry Cross Citation, and finally, Civil Actions Unit Citation.
I will leave you with a tribute from one of his oppos, Donovan Colness. During an April 2012 interview, when asked if you could somehow see him alive today, what would you say to him? Colness stated, "I would tell him thank you, and God bless you for being there for all of us in Alpha Company. We owe you our lives." From everything I've read about him online, Bondsteel just seemed to touch all those around him with his good nature and kindness. To me, I get the impression on that day he conducted those deeds to which he was awarded the Medal of Honor, he was purely motivated by wanting to help his buddies rather than trying to be a hero. He just seems a thoroughly decent chap, and I hope I've done him justice. Thanks for watching. I hope you found some value from this, and I'll see you in the next one.